15 of Iron Bay Research. Last time we went over me having the itis and kind of job hopping a little bit. This time
our chaotic year of jobs, yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of moving pieces. But now we're going to dive into what happened with you in your new job.
Yeah.
So catch us up.
So that was a big transition. We told you guys that my clearance came in last time. The first time I got a government clearance, and how I got a technical writing position. We're contracting for the government. So for those not familiar, there are people obviously that work for the government and are employed by the government, but a lot of positions are actually contracted out by the government. So you're working for just a regular company that is subletted by the government. Okay. So you work for a company, but you're supporting a government contract.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what I was doing. And this was my first time doing that. So it's very, very different, as you and I know, what comes with that, because we both have experience in it.
Before you were at?
Before I was at an engineering firm.
Okay, so civilian to...
Yeah.
Still civilian, but
still civilian, but in a government building, working on a government contract, using my clearance. These are all very new things to me. So I had no idea what to expect. And from the get-go, it's very different. In the regular world, you don't really need all these secret accesses and things like that, so you can immediately start working. So when I started my job at George Mason Mortgage, when I started my job at, the AutoNation, the car company down in... Oh, did we talk about that a lot?
We talked about it briefly.
I don't recall. Anyways, that doesn't really matter too much what I did there. But, and then this engineering firm, once you get, even though you're training up on little things and it's compiling, you can get to work immediately. Yeah. So it's very different. So this job I quickly learned in the government was, I got there and I was so gung-ho, and you have to wait like a month for all your accesses. So you just literally sit there and don't work and get paid for like weeks.
I think Kevin had mentioned this, but you were just like, he had to sit in office for like 2 months, or just like, you have to be here.
Yeah.
Like getting hours, but...
So people think they're being nice and they like print stuff out for you to read, because you cannot access the computer at all. Like, you don't have any computer access, so you just sit there and you wait and you read PowerPoints that people printed off for you.
Did you bring like a book or something? Or like you didn't feel like...
No, because then you'll be looked at like you're reading a book. And maybe if it was something that was related to the job, but really they just want to see you sitting in your seat and doing nothing. 50 Shades of Grey while you're waiting. Yeah, I know. I wish so, but as a new employee, you're like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm just like chilling.
That's what it is.
Yeah, so it is. So anyways, once I got all my accesses and started working, I was like so excited to start.
Were you working on base or?
I was working on base. So I was working on a base called Fort Belvoir in Northern Virginia. And that was different too, because you have to get all your base accesses and stuff. Yeah. And Bryce, you grew up with the military. Yeah. So you were familiar with getting onto Quantico base, which was by a Marine base by where we lived. Fort Belvoir was an Army base.
Well, by the time you lived in Benning too for several months.
I forgot about that. It wasn't new in that way. I forgot. Yeah. So I was familiar with Fort Benning for Bryce, but. I guess to give people a little background on my family, I had 2 grandpas and an uncle that did some time, but not that I was privy to. It didn't. I didn't interact with my life at all. So I had no idea about the military or that lifestyle. I didn't even really have any friends that were Army brats other than you, but your dad was different because he was gone all the time, but you guys stayed the same.
Yeah. We didn't live on base growing up. I lived down the road from you.
Yeah. So I just had no idea about that world. So me working in that world I was very nervous because, the first couple weeks you meet people and it's very rank. what's the
rank
word? Driven. Yeah.
Everyone's just like,
And I wasn't familiar with that. And honestly, I wasn't even raised yes ma'am, no ma'am. So
yeah.
I was just so out of place and very
That is
uncomfortable.
annoying when like they would make civilians call them by their rank.
Yes.
Like if I wanted to call you rank, I would have been. Like,
I
it's
got
stupid, I think.
yeah, I got awkwardly corrected many times. So it was like the first year, honestly, of my job in the contracting world for the government that I was very uncomfortable talking to anyone. No, I was uncomfortable talking to anyone in uniform, and just because I wasn't that way, it's very hard to retrain your brain. For me, I'm like, you're just a person. Everyone's just a person.
Yeah. Well, it's very unapproachable. The first thing is like,
it is.
Don't come by my name. Call me by the status that makes me better than
my
you.
Job title. Yeah.
Yeah, which is like
it's just
it's a
weird.
quick way to make yourself very unapproachable.
Yeah.
And it's like wrong.
It's and there you quickly learned who you could be casual with and who you couldn't. You know, there were several people that you would say Mr. So-and-so because that's what you observed everyone calling them. But then those people would be like, no, call me yada yada by my first name.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, oh, okay, phew, you know. Yeah. But then there'd be other people where you'd say Mr. So-and-so and they're like, no, I'm Corporal yada yada. And you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's tricky.
I'm curious, did you notice like the officers or like higher enlisted doing it more one or the other, or was it they kind of like a hodgepodge? You know what I'm asking? Yeah,
I would say that it didn't have to do with rank, or officer versus enlisted. Yeah. Where I was working, I would say it was mostly, actually there was only like 2 or 3 people that were actually in the military. Yeah, and I think they were either officer or enlisted. It was mostly contractors. Yeah. But I think it had a lot to do just with personality and ego. It didn't have to do with enlisted versus officer. Yeah, I didn't find that it was more of one or the other. Okay. I found that it was just personality. Some people were casual, some people weren't. And I don't know. I guess it's just your background that warrants that. But yeah, it was definitely walking on eggshells a lot. Yeah, and I didn't love that feeling. Luckily, I got very comfortable with the people that I worked with and supported. Yeah. But every once in a while, there'd be someone that you had to work with that was very like, this is my rank and you don't speak to me until spoken to type of thing. And I'm just not used to that. So I would just avoid those people, to be honest. Yeah. Because I'm like, this is uncomfortable and you're getting an email because I can't talk to you in person. Yeah, it's like way to make communication like slow as shit. Yeah. Like, oh, for sure. And it's like every stigma that comes with like government working was true. I found to be true. Could you like say a couple of stigmas? Like what were you like? What's like top 3 that like stick out? Like, well, I guess I would say the main thing, like you said, the communication and slowness of it. Yeah. That was what it was centered around because of, I would say those, not necessarily egos, but just the too many cooks in the kitchen. Like there was so many unnecessary workers there, I think. Even myself included. I wasn't even necessary. Exploded. Yeah, like my job literally was pointless. Yeah. I'm thankful for it. I think it's cool. I'm super thankful for it, I was totally pointless. So I think there's a lot of that. Yeah. I would say is wasted butts and seats. Well, I think when you look at it, I mean, I know you talk to a lot of workers in the government, and a lot of them say like, you know, they work an 8-hour day, and it's really only 2 hours of actual work. For sure. And of those 2 hours, they're not sure why we're doing or this and that. I mean, there's it's a massive, like, just over-bloated. I don't know the word. But just being bloated, too many workers, too much head count. So I will say, though, I think I learned later that maybe it was mission-driven. Like, the contract that I supported as a whole wasn't super necessary. Mm-hmm. We were just a free service that the government paid to give to those in the military. It was an IT contract.
Yeah.
And basically what we did was we gave people rough order of magnitudes to include how much it might cost to take their physical servers over to like virtual server, basically upgrade their shit.
So you just gave them a cost estimate.
Yeah, literally a cost estimate, and what could be involved was like a little extra. But we were paid by the government so that their people could come to us to figure out, is the juice worth the squeeze, basically.
Yeah.
But you could get that from the person that was actually going to lift and shift your stuff.
Let that person fit it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we were I felt like we weren't really necessary, and later to find out we weren't, because the contract a couple years later ended up being.
I think it's important to recognize whether it is or isn't.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
Like, talk a little bit about like the contract timings and just like, oh, it's ending. Do we all have jobs?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people go through that, and I think a good way to recognize if it's important is like
to jump or leave. Yeah.
And like ask yourself, is what I'm doing, am I actually doing a job?
Yeah.
And then 2, is it important? And that can gauge if you're like,
yeah.
if you're on the top
and this
block.
And this goes into layoffs too, because I guess it's technically considered like a layoff, because you really have to dig deep. Like, am I important? Are they going to keep me? You know,
is the government going to renew this contract?
Yeah, exactly. So, really quick before I segue into that, I'll just finish about mission driven. I found out, when we moved to Tampa, eventually we'll talk in a later episode, that mission was way more important, and it was necessary. People on that job were necessary. I felt like what I was doing was necessary. So it was just different. So at this job, it was really just doing a shit job to make a lot more money than I'm used to, just to get my foot in the door.
That's like really self-aware, and I think people can be naive when they're like, every job's important.
No.
That's
No, not at all.
Yeah,
for me, it was just about the paycheck, getting my toes wet in the government contracting world, and that proved a purpose. And I actually did.
What was your starting pay again?
$60K.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Later on that contract, I'll talk after I wrap this up. Later on that contract, it was very pivotal for me. It became pivotal and important, and then I felt like I was like, oh, I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
But that was just the beginning year. Or actually the beginning couple months. So as soon as I took this job, the contract was up for rebid. So in the government, it depends on how long the contract is. So when they sublet out work to contractors, they bid the job, they pick someone, usually whoever's the cheapest.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. And when I took this job, I was aware that it was coming up for rebid 2 months after I started.
Yeah.
So it was a risk for sure.
Oh yeah, I remember that. We talked about that.
I was like, do I take it? And what if like the job is no more after I take it?
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, I got to take it.
I'm gonna take a pause. So, like, this is a good risk reward thing.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't interrupt. It was like,
no, it's okay.
It was like, so take it back. You had a job working at the architect firm. And what was that?
Engineering firm, yeah. 40,000.
So you had a job paying 40, and then you were offered a job that made 60, but had a 2-month secure, and then was gonna go for a rebid. But that's kind of like that was a risk.
It was a risk.
You're talking about a 50% increase for a better job with a better pipeline, if it exists, and there's also a huge chance you get fired in 2 fucking months.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good risk reward, and that was... So I guess the point is like, sometimes you have to risk it for the biscuit.
You do, yeah. I was like, I could apply around for the next 7 months to hopefully get hired with no experience with my clearance. Yeah. But I needed to move because your dad's new company...
Oh, yeah? We had a timeline.
Yeah, we had a timeline on my clearance staying active or being held. So I was like, I just have to take it.
Yeah.
There was too many things involved, right? So, so anyways, the worst happened. The contract, the company that I worked for lost the contract 2 months after I started working there. So I was like, oh, great. So they lost the contract 2 months after I started working there, but you don't really phase out until like 4 more months.
So really like 6 months.
So no, I had like 3 or 4 months of
Okay.
like, what am I gonna do?
Okay.
So I kept busting my butt for 2 months. Luckily, in that time, even though I only had access to all these systems and was only working for like 3-ish months, people noticed that I was a really good worker, and everyone wanted me.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. It was awesome. So then I was in a position where I ended up jumping ship because I wasn't offered a position yet by the new company. Because usually what happens is the new company's coming in, most likely keep all the workers.
Yeah.
But if they bid for the job really low and the government just went with them because they were cheap, they have to cut some people.
Yeah.
And my job was definitely one of the first to be cut.
Yeah.
For sure. So I was like, oh yeah, I have to jump.
Yeah.
So the company that lost the contract, I went ahead, and which is actually the company that my dad works for now and has been working for 10 years.
Can you say it or?
I don't know. I feel weird.
Yeah, it's public. I don't know.
Oh, I guess it is public knowledge now. Yeah. So the company was GDIT.
Yeah, just put it.
Yeah. General Dynamics.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm not gonna do the other ones because it was like too much going on. So yeah, it was just GDIT, and they're massive company, IT company. So I figured if I stayed with them, I would have room to grow, right? And that was where I needed to weigh my decision. The company that won the contract I was on was Cyber Data Technologies. They were very small, like 100 people.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they won the contract, because they bid it super cheap.
Yeah.
GDIT is a massive company. And someone that was already on that contract was not going to stay and was just going to go back. But they were like, I really like the way you work. Come with me and be on the business development team for GDIT, which is proposal working, right?
Okay.
So just working for corporate. Corporate job, proposing bids for government contracts. And I was like, wow, actually, that really interests me. Sounds like right up my alley.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll hold your clearance for you, of course, even though you're not really using it.
Okay.
So go do that. So I left the contract. I made that decision. I did the corporate thing, started on a Monday. The next day, on Tuesday, after I left the contract, the new company, Cyber Data, was like, they revealed that they made a good friend of mine on the contract program manager.
Okay.
So the program manager, who I was good friends with and really liked the way I worked, was like, no, I need you. I don't care what you're doing on the contract. I need you back.
Yeah.
And he offered me $80,000 to come back.
Nice.
So here I was like, do I stay at? And I was at 60K. Yeah, it was crazy. It was literally a week of craziness.
Yeah. So 40 to 60 till I lost my job, till I got my job back.
To 8.
I got a new job.
Yeah.
And I got my old job back.
Yeah.
Had a pay increase.
Yeah, it was
This is why we don't fucking believe in 5-year plans, dude.
Yeah, it was just crazy. So, yeah, there I was. I was like, do I stay at this corporate position for 60K where there's room to grow?
Yeah.
Or do I go back to my old job that I know, and I know everyone there, and take another 20K increase to 80K? And I was talking to my new boss at this corporate position, who I only knew for 3 days, and was like, look, this is the deal. I'm like, they're offering me my old job back for $80,000 and you're only paying me $60,000. I like the room to grow here.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to just stay on the corporate side and learn business development. I was like, is there anything you could do so that I don't feel guilty leaving 80K on the table, but I cannot stay here for 60K. And he's like, I know what you're going through. I can't give you more than 60K for this position. And I was like, all right. And he said, it sounds like you know what you need to do.
I'll take a second here. So I think a lot of people go through this shit and they make kind of the wrong decision. It's like they'll look a gift horse in the mouth. It's like you staying somewhere for 60 grand for room to grow, but then you already have 80 grand on the table.
Yeah.
That 60 grand room to grow might have only been up to 80.
Will it come to fruition? Who knows?
I think sometimes with so much uncertainty, you have to take, like, if it's a win, take it. Even if it feels like, oh, it's too soon, just fucking take it. Like, that was a really good movement of, like, this is a winning path for the next 1 or 2 years. This is a win. And
so
when you took those small steps, it led to a massive doubling.
So listen to this. If you forget everything that happened in between, I left my job in November for $40K, and I got bumped up to $80K 6 months later in May.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because you took the jumps that were needed to get
I just did it. Yeah, I know. So that was wild. So here I was making $40K 6 months prior, and then now I'm making $80K. And not only was I making $80K, then I went back to the contract, right, doing my same position. They were working a little bit cheaper, so that was kind of the deal, is I do 2 positions. So not only did I do my old technical writing job, but I did, it was called business lead, which was actually interacting with customers. So then I was doing that job as well, and I got really good at it, and it got noticed, and then I got offered operations manager 6 months after that for $95,000. So it just ended up working out really, really
so
well.
So you saw like what, 140%
But
increase?
This is where the Security Plus certification comes in, because that was the catch, is I could be operations manager, but I needed to have a special access that required me to have this IT certification that I didn't know shit about. So I just read a bunch of books, and in 3 months, I got my Security Plus certification.
Nice.
I failed the first time, which was a huge bummer, because I'm like, I had already gotten the pay raise and the position. And he was like, I just need you to get this within like 6 months. And I was like, so I was stressed, because I was like, I'll do it. But I failed the certification test the first time, and I was like, oh my God, my raise and my job title is contingent on me passing this freaking test. So I was stressing. I was stressing. But luckily the second time cleared my mind, whipped back in 2 weeks later, and I passed by like 2 questions. I was like, woo!
Hey,
Which, that cert then led me to work with other people, and because I had certain accesses, I learned a whole new skill. And it just was super pivotal in my career. That just, very thankful to my good friend Josh, who was the program manager and allowed me those opportunities. It was amazing. Because I wouldn't have had those opportunities without him or without the people that I worked with, and it was just great. It was really great. Like, no complaints.
A good example. And it's hard to look at it from like, it worked out for you, so always do that, because like some people do these jumps and it
doesn't work out.
But just because it fails once, like, you gotta get and try again. You just have to keep trying.
Well, and that was always in the back of my mind, because here I was the loyal to a fault person, and now I'm new to contracting, and I'm like, God, I learned quickly that's just that world, and that's what people do. You just hop. And so I was like, I'll give it a try.
Well, it's like, think about this, right? When you look at like net pay, you doing all of that, going from 40 to 60, 80, 95, you could have then failed your Sec Plus and been fired. And gone back to...
Probably 80.
Got fired and gone back to your
engineering
job.
True.
And you still would have been a net bonus of money. So I just think when there's a good opportunity, people just like, they're afraid of failing, but if the money pay is there, just the time value, it's worth it. Like, because 1 year working there was worth 2 at the engineering firm. So it's like, take the risk.
No, absolutely. So, so after I came back to that contract for the new company, I worked there for 2 years before we moved to Tampa. But
and that really set us up
it did.
For success.
Because I was making $95K for 2 years before we moved to Tampa. So it was a massive help.
Massive
help.
And that'll lead into next time we're going to talk about what we started doing with all this extra cash.
Yes,
Because we're sort of shifting into, okay, we're working, we're making money. Now what do we do with this pile of money?
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out what to do with it. And
No,
so this
absolutely.
is where we start really, poking at stuff and exploring.
Yeah, and then for me too, this is kind of where I solidified my resume. It was very IT focused, which I was not anticipating because I'm not an IT person. When I was working at that engineering firm, I was doing administration, just admin stuff. So I was working really, really hard, but menial tasks, tasks that anyone can do, right?
Yeah.
Anyone can learn them. But at this IT job, it became like focused stuff.
Yeah.
And, something I do want to talk about too at that job that I learned quickly that I thought was really cool is it became very apparent that it didn't matter what my resume said and the way that people treated me. It was how I carried myself and how I performed at my job. To the point where I was in situations where there were very, very experienced engineers on that contract. Really smart freaking people. And I would get asked by head engineers to do certain tasks because they didn't want to deal with those screw-offs that were just annoying based on the personality. They would ask me to do stuff that their subordinate engineers should be doing because they knew I would get it done quickly. And it was just a matter of them showing me how to do it. And like an Excel thing or something like that. And it was like, hey, usually I would have my engineering team do this, but I need it done now. So that was cool. It was I got to learn a lot of stuff just based off
being a known
my personality. So that's the one advice I would give anyone is if you have a go get it attitude, people will notice. They will, and they'll you'll be afforded more opportunities because of that. It's all in the way that you present yourself, the way you do your work. So I just thought that was really, really cool and something that I was super grateful for.
Yeah, no, I think the trade-off or the reason why most people don't value that, unfortunately, is because with that, you have to give first to show that you're a go-getter before you receive. Before it's almost like a blind bet. You're betting, I'll work a little bit extra harder, I get something done, and you don't know what you can get out of it, but it will come back eventually.
And it's all about trust too. Those subordinate engineers, they would say things like, I can't believe he let her access that spreadsheet or even touch that. And the head engineer would be like, it's about trust. I know she's not an idiot. And
you're overthinking it.
It's not about the experience. It's about, can you learn this task and can you do it in a timely manner? So it's quality, it's time management. It's trust. It's you have to build those, and so I built those doing the menial tasks, and I was afforded opportunities on more advanced tasks, which was cool.
Because she's reliable here, she's reliable there.
Which led to my operations manager position. There were people on that contract that were good workers and really nice people that were there longer than me, but I think I was afforded that position because of these little off projects that I was handed just because of my personality. So that led to an all-encompassing resume. You know what I mean? I wasn't just business lead, technical writing. It was hey, we have this website, which this was a true story. We had a website for our contract that no one was running. And they were like, Kara, you seem like you manage your time and your workload well and that you're bored. Do you want to also do this? And I was like, hell yeah. So then I learned website HTML, which is crazy.
It's a double sort of curse of if you work hard, you have some managers that take advantage of you and give you more work without the reward. But then and I think you have to take that risk. Because there are some that will see that you're crushing it and give you more with the reward.
Well, and exactly. That's a very good point because I took that risk at $60K. I was afforded back at $80K because I had these special skills. And then I was afforded the operations manager opportunity because I had that. So I did take on that extra work more than other technical writers were or more than other business leads were because I was like, I just want to know everything and be indispensable. And I became indispensable and I got a massive pay bump for it.
And you earned it.
Because I worked for the right people though, you know?
Yeah, like
if we talked about this a little bit last time, if you're not working for people that are willing to elevate you based on what you're doing, then yeah, you should look elsewhere. But I was very lucky to have amazing bosses and leadership that elevated me.
It's willing to take the first step. And I think, like, this might segue something else, but it's like if someone asks, like if your job is A, B, and C, and then your boss or manager says, hey, can you do D as well? I think some people get too caught up on like, oh, well, that's not in my
wheelhouse.
That wasn't in my job description. I'm like, if it's like a crunch time moment, just fucking get it done. Yeah. But some people are like, we got to go back and talk to HR. I'm not allowed to do this, and just like that just makes you unapproachable and just like I'm never gonna ask for anything again.
Yeah, I think
like within reason. Like it's not like a complete job change, but just like hey,
no, for sure,
here, getting it done. Like just do it.
Especially when you're building your career, right? I think there's times and places for that, and there's moments where. There's going to be crap employers that do take advantage, and you should be able to know when that's happening, right? But for times where they're like, hey, can you do this, at your current pay? It's like, I think that's a great opportunity to go, I will do this at my current pay, and in 6 months I'll be indispensable, and that's when I approach HR and look, I gained this new skill, so
what's up?
Boo-bop-a-doo. And
I think people that don't adapt are people that get fired.
Yeah, unfortunately.
If you were showing, hey, I'm not adaptable. Guess who's on the chopping block? Because guess what adapts is the job.
No, for sure.
It's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so be adaptable.
Yeah, you have to be, especially now with technology.
Oh, 100%. In the government, it's like, hey, it's going to change. So if you're just like, this on my job description, wow, you just made yourself a target. Like you're annoying. Yeah, exactly. It is what it is. Like, you're tough to work with, man.
No, exactly. So. And oh gosh, that's a whole other conversation we could get into. Is being approachable and amicable on the. Yeah. It's not a harsh reality that sometimes you do get elevated and you do get brought into certain projects at work because of your personality. So I think
you're working with someone with 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like if you
we talk about this often.
It matters. Trying to downplay like this shouldn't matter. It fucking does.
It matters.
Like if you don't think it does, you're a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Like if you don't think being nice to like be around.
The best thing you can do for yourself in the workplace is read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Just be nice.
And you can learn anything. Anyone can learn anything.
Yeah.
And I learned that very quickly. It's just be nice, approachable, and be a yes man to an extent, and opportunities will come.
Being nice and being a yes man are different. Those are
maybe.
Different. It's like look at your current work environment and then like think about the most friendly person to be around, and then the most grumpy piece of shit to be around.
And see.
And then you think if you were to be around someone for 8 hours a day, who would you ever be with?
Yeah.
Like skill side.
No, that's a good point. Let's say this. Yeah, let's say you're looking at two of the same people up for a job promotion, same exact skill set, same exact job. You're going to pick the friendlier person.
The person that you can get lunch with, the person that you... Like, it matters. And people say that it shouldn't matter. What's that called? Where it's like... nepotism?
No, nepotism is family. It's just like an advantage, I guess.
It's real. And there's no amount of HR regulation that is going to block that out.
Yeah.
They've tried to. It's just going to find a way to wiggle it.
Yeah.
It matters. Just be cool. Be easy.
Be cool. Be cool. Stay cool.
Yeah, just be easy to work with, So.
No, for sure, because I think there should be... I mean, there's probably stuff out there on... I mean, I know there is books out there on this, but I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself in the workplace if you find yourself struggling that way is read like emotional intelligence books in the workplace, because it matters.
People with your same degree.
Yeah.
That's like
so you
that
can
doesn't stand you out anymore.
You can set yourself apart by being likable.
Yeah. I think that's probably the only way to stand out now.
No, for
that's such a memorable thing. You remember someone that's nice, you're not gonna give a shit. It's like, oh, this guy.
You just like them,
because everyone has those qualifications.
I mean, and that goes into interviews too, right? Yeah. Why do you have interviews? It's not to talk. They see your resume. They're trying to figure out if they like you.
Like, hey, do you want to work this guy and get lunch with him and go and work?
Yeah,
like, nah.
It's not necessarily about. I mean, it is about how you answer the questions. It's about how you answer the questions, not the
what you answer.
technicality of your answer.
It can be taught.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, maybe they didn't know that exactly, but I like the way that they said it, or I like the way that they admitted that they had no idea what the frick.
Yeah. No, it's
you know what I mean?
It's
so
definitely like
I just think
I
that's
want to
huge.
dive into that more on a different
I
episode.
do.
It's definitely like an unpredictable
I feel
topic.
very passionate about that.
Yeah.
Because like we said, in those 3 years of me doing this contracting, it was like bam, bam, bam. And it was all just because I felt like I was friendly. I didn't feel like I deserved those positions.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed because I was only 24,
Yeah.
making almost 6 figures when everyone else was way older than me and not.
Yeah. But you can also say too is like they got the government slime on them. We're just like, hey, you do the bare minimum. You never get fired.
Yeah.
Which is very evident in government.
No,
like,
it
you
is.
do the bare minimum and you can't get fired.
No, that's
and
true.
That gets in their bones.
No, that's true.
I think this is a good stopping point to wrap up, though.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
we can talk about that. I think next time, maybe we prepare some stuff on like emotional intelligence in like working and relationship. Yeah, because that's something we feel really passionate about.
That goes into almost all the different jobs we've had.
For sure.
No, that was good. Well, no,
yeah,
we can end it here. So
sure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this and want more, subscribe or comment below. We'll see you here next time on Iron Bay Research. Bryce and Kara signing out.